But look, let's go to Queensland, where Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk has spent the week spreading even more COVID confusion. After telling Australians they would need to fork out $150 on a rapid test, she backed down.
Well, Annastacia Palaszczuk was wrong to infer that other states like South Australia were demanding certificates, and she's now backed down and said you can get a normal PCR test from your normal drive-through centre if you want to travel to Queensland. Those tests are funded 50-50 by the states and Commonwealth, so either way the Queensland Government will not be paying anything because it will be the New South Wales or Victorian or ACT governments that are effectively paying for the test. Nevertheless, the Queensland Premier has confused a lot of people and then last night claimed the status quo as a victory, perplexing the Federal Health Minister today.
And then later in the week, Palaszczuk left her Health Minister to apologise for the handling of the PCR test comms.
So would you like to take this opportunity to apologise as the Health Minister?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to apologise. There was a lot of confusion around this. We've made it clear there isn't a cost without needing a certificate. We don't require the certificate. A text, which we have always said, a text is suitable. It's been on our border pass system since it went live at 70%. That I am just pleased that people do not have to incur this cost. They can get the PCR test, which is absolutely invaluable in stopping this virus coming into our state.
And this wasn't the only strange moment to come out of Queensland this week, as Palaszczuk desperately attempted to spin her mistakes as the federal government playing politics. She made absurd claims to the media that the Morrison government wanted to catch COVID for Christmas.
Look, I think the politics has to stop. This is about families, it's about reuniting at Christmas. No. This is a backflip by the federal government. This is about singling Queensland out. This is about the federal election. Why did the federal government want Queenslanders to get COVID for Christmas, to get vaccinated?
You say you're sick of the politics, but at the same time you're also saying the federal government wants to give Queenslanders COVID for Christmas. Is that a bit hypocritical?
They wanted to scrap the PCR test.
But do they really want to give Queenslanders COVID for Christmas?
Scrapping...
That's politics, isn't it?
Scrapping the PCR... No, this is fact. Scrapping the PCR test is a less... It would be less effective. It would have an impact of allowing.
There's a difference between scrapping the test and actually giving Queenslanders COVID for Christmas, isn't there? It's a political lie. At the same time, you're saying you're sick of the politics.
I don't want Queenslanders to have COVID for Christmas.
But do you honestly believe the federal government wants to give Queenslanders COVID for Christmas?
Well, why? You have to ask them why they wanted to scrap the tests.
We're going to go.
Bravo to the journalists at this press conference who rightly noted that her rhetoric was dangerous, irresponsible and essentially fearmongering. The slogan, "They want you to get COVID for Christmas," might test well for pollsters, but all Palaszczuk is doing is using fear to tighten her grip. And to make matters worse, it isn't even true. No one wants anyone to get COVID. That's an absurd thing to say, and it lacks all evidence. Palaszczuk has a bad habit of turning her media messaging into a black and white stance. Here is my policy. Disagree with me and you want to give Queenslanders COVID. And to all of our Queensland viewers, always be wary of a slogan. But be especially sceptical when a slogan carries the connotation that any voice of dissent will physically harm people. Well, Chris, I would love to get your thoughts on this. Annastacia Palaszczuk, she's been a strange performer, I would argue, this pandemic. But this slogan, "They want you to get COVID for Christmas," that's borderline crazy.
It's more than borderline crazy. Look, it's tempting to be dismissive and sort of say Queensland confusing one day, discombobulated the next, with her and Yvette Darth running an absolute shambles there. But it's worse than that. This is really nasty. Think about it. Just often with these things, it's good just to flip them around. Now, you imagine what the media would be doing if Scott Morrison said Xi Jinping wanted Australians to get COVID for Christmas, or Scott Morrison said that Mark McGowan wanted to spread infections from Western Australia to the rest of the country. They would rightly come down on him like a ton of bricks because, as you said, it's alarmist, it's incorrect, it's ignorant, it's divisive. Yet this is the Premier of Queensland saying this about our Prime Minister. It really shows she's not fit for office, but we have this pathetic media environment where they just allow her to get away with that sort of thing. I don't think a Conservative leader, certainly not a Conservative Prime Minister, would be allowed to get away with such hateful and divisive and plainly wrong rhetoric.
Yeah, and Caroline, in terms of the rhetoric, it really does look as if it's been polling and market tested, because whenever she gets in trouble, when a journalist stands up to her, she reverts back to this sloganeering and then she just keeps repeating it several times.
Yeah, correct. And look, she and other premiers have done that with different phrases over the whole course of the pandemic. Look, we have seen the Queensland media gallery has been so docile for the last 2 years and has basically let her get away with saying all sorts of things in relation to COVID, in relation to the federal government, in relation to the vaccine. And what we saw here was someone pushing back. And she almost, Annastacia didn't know what to do with herself. We saw her fall over her words. And you're right, she just went back to repeating the line instead of explaining what the line meant. And then there's a little bit of footage which comes after that. And she's like, oh, I've got to get on a plane, bye. And then she just bolts from this press conference. So I'm sure if there's a few more people in the Queensland media who'd like to do their job, it is going to make for some fabulous footage, because she was out of there so quick. The minute she could not explain herself, it was delightful television.
Chris, she's got dozens of media minders.
Of course.
What are they doing? Are they teaching her how to handle this?
Well, she's probably, as Caroline said, she's probably not had much practice. My argument, I've often observed that I think good coalition politicians handle aggressive media much better because they get so much practice at doing it, you know. Labor politicians often get such a soft ride when they first confront an aggressive interviewer, they don't know where to go. Witness Bill Shorten in the last election campaign. But the whole debate, the issues we're looking at tonight, just comes back to a central point of the past year and a half, in my view, and that is the media and most of the politicians have been in cahoots. There's been way too much alarmism and overreach when it comes to the pandemic management, and most of the politicians, certainly most of the state premiers, with New South Wales excluded, and most of the media, especially on the ABC and the publicly funded media, have been in cahoots with them, driving up the hysteria, driving up the alarm, encouraging ever more government interventions. And they're not going to stop, whether it's new variants from Africa or whatever. They won't stop. They love the story. They love the hysteria. They seem to work against any sense of calm resolve on this issue.